What if the key to overcoming your struggles today isn't found in your strength, but in God's unwavering love? Imagine waking up each morning knowing that His perfect love will guide your every step, calming your fears and filling you with peace. Ready to experience a new kind of assurance? Let's dive in. Part 1. Understanding God's unwavering love. Have you ever wondered how it feels to be loved in a way that doesn't change with the tides of your life? In a world that often ties love to performance, appearance, or circumstance, God's love stands as an unshakable foundation. His love is not fickle. It doesn't rise and fall with your emotions, and it's never intimidated by your past mistakes or fears about the future. In Romans 8:38-39, the Apostle Paul writes, "For I am convinced that neither death nor life, neither angels nor demons, neither the present nor the future, nor any powers, neither height nor depth, nor anything else in all creation, will be able to separate us from the love of God that is in Christ Jesus our Lord." This passage reminds us that God's love is eternal and unwavering. It's not conditional upon our actions or our perfection. It's an unconditional love that surrounds us, no matter what we're going through. Historically, this concept of love was revolutionary for early Christians. They lived in a world where love was often transactional, given only when something was expected in return. But the love of God, as revealed through Christ, is different. It is love without limits, love that gives freely, even when we feel unworthy. This is the love that calls us into relationship with God, the love that leads us no matter where we are in life. Spiritually, God's love provides us with a profound sense of security. We don't have to earn it, and we don't have to perform to receive it. It is a love that fills us with peace, not based on anything we've done, but based on who He is. And when we accept this love, it transforms us. It drives away fear, anxiety, and self-doubt. The application for our lives today is simple yet powerful. Accept God's unconditional love and let it be the lens through which you see the world. Let it guide your decisions, your actions, and even your relationships with others. When you trust in His love, you can face any circumstance with peace, knowing that you are deeply, eternally loved. Part 2. Letting go of fear and anxiety. What if the greatest barrier to your peace isn't your circumstances, but the way you respond to them? So many of us spend our days battling inner turmoil, unsure of what to do with the fear and anxiety that creep in at every turn. We often believe that peace is something we must chase, something we have to earn or control. But what if peace, true peace, is something we can receive rather than strive for? In Philippians 4:6-7, the Apostle Paul writes, "Do not be anxious about anything, but in every situation, by prayer and petition with thanksgiving, present your requests to God. And the peace of God, which transcends all understanding, will guard your hearts and your minds in Christ Jesus." Paul gives us a clear command. Do not be anxious about anything. Easier said than done, right? But what he offers next is revolutionary: the peace of God. It's a peace that doesn't make sense in the midst of chaos, a peace that guards our hearts and minds when everything else feels out of control. It's a peace that surpasses understanding, meaning it isn't dependent on our circumstances being perfect. It's a peace rooted in trust in God's love and sovereignty. Historically, early Christians faced persecution, uncertainty, and deep fears for their lives. Yet Paul's words here were not just theoretical. They were a lifeline for those who, despite their fears, chose to place their trust in God. They didn't have the luxury of guaranteed safety, but they had the assurance of God's peace to guard their hearts. Spiritually, This peace isn't passive, it's protective. It guards our hearts and minds like a sentinel, standing watch over us when we feel vulnerable. But this peace isn't something we can conjure up on our own. It's a gift from God, activated through prayer and surrender. When we bring our anxieties to God and acknowledge our inability to control everything, His peace enters the situation, and it changes everything. The application for our lives today is profound. Instead of carrying the weight of worry alone, we are invited to release it to God. Prayer isn't just about asking for things. It's about surrendering our fears, anxieties, and desires into His hands. When we do, His peace, which defies all logic, floods our hearts. We don't have to have all the answers, but we can walk in His peace, knowing that He holds our future. Let go of the need to control and allow God's peace to guard your heart and mind today. Trust in His love and watch your anxiety fade. Part 3. A prophetic shift in our atmosphere. Have you ever walked into a room and felt the atmosphere shift, as if something had changed the moment you stepped inside? That's the power of God's presence. When He enters, everything changes. The weight of fear, the chaos of confusion, the burden of stress. These things must bow to His peace. When we allow God's love to lead us, it doesn't just change us, it transforms the space around us. In Isaiah 55:12, the prophet declares, "You will go out in joy and be led forth in peace. The mountains and the hills will burst into song before you, and all the trees of the field will clap their hands." This passage is filled with vivid imagery. Nature itself rejoices in God's presence. It's a promise that when God's love leads us, it will bring a profound sense of peace, not only to our hearts, but to the world around us. Historically, this was a word of hope to the Israelites, who were in exile and longing for restoration. The promise of God's peace wasn't just about internal comfort. It was about a sweeping transformation that would impact everything, every situation, every relationship, every environment. The coming of God's peace meant that even the earth itself would celebrate His restoration. Spiritually, this shift in atmosphere is more than just a pleasant feeling. It's a declaration of God's kingdom breaking into our present reality. When we allow God's love to lead us, we carry that peace into every room, every conversation, and every interaction. It's not about trying to manipulate the environment or force peace into existence. It's about submitting to God's presence, allowing Him to work through us. His peace becomes a testimony to others of the transformative power of His love. The application for our lives today is powerful. Imagine walking into your workplace, your home, or even a stressful situation, and instead of feeling overwhelmed, you are the one carrying peace. This isn't just wishful thinking. It's a tangible reality when God's love leads us. When you rest in His love, it naturally radiates out, touching those around you. Let His peace flow through you and watch how it shifts your atmosphere. You might not have control over everything in your life, but you do have control over your willingness to be led by His love. And when you do, the change is inevitable. God's peace will flood not only your heart, but the world around you, bringing clarity and calm wherever you go. Let God's love lead today, and allow His peace to be the shift you've been waiting for. Part 4. Moving from panic to peace. Have you ever found yourself in the midst of a storm, feeling as though everything around you is spinning out of control? Maybe you've experienced that gut-wrenching panic, the rush of thoughts that leave you breathless, unsure of what to do next. In those moments, it's easy to be overwhelmed by the weight of your circumstances. But what if there was a better way. A way to move from panic to peace. In John 14:27, Jesus says, "Peace I leave with you, my peace I give you. I do not give to you as the world gives. Do not let your hearts be troubled, and do not be afraid." These words were spoken by Jesus to his disciples during a time of deep uncertainty. He was preparing them for his departure, yet he promised them peace, a peace that transcends any understanding of the world's peace. This peace isn't contingent on circumstances. It's rooted in the presence of Jesus himself. Historically, Jesus was speaking to his disciples who were about to face the turbulence of his crucifixion and the fear of being scattered. Yet, he reassures them that his peace would be with them, even when the world seemed to be falling apart. This peace wasn't just for them in the moment. It was a peace that would endure through all seasons of life, available to us today, even in our most chaotic moments. Spiritually, Jesus' peace is unlike any peace we can find in the world. It's not a temporary feeling that comes and goes with favorable conditions. It's a lasting, unshakable peace that rests in the truth of who God is and his promises. Jesus gives us his peace as a gift, not based on our ability to manage the storm, but on our willingness to trust him to calm it. The application for our lives today is simple, yet profound. When panic strikes, instead of succumbing to it, we can choose to surrender our fear to God and let his peace reign in our hearts. This doesn't mean that everything will immediately calm down or that our problems will vanish. It means that in the midst of the storm, we are not alone. God's peace is available to us, and it's stronger than any fear we face. When we invite God's peace into our hearts, we can walk confidently, knowing that his love leads us through every moment, no matter how chaotic. This peace isn't something we manufacture. It's a divine gift that we receive when we choose to lean into God's presence. Today, choose peace over panic. Let his peace rule in your heart, and trust that he will carry you through every storm. Part 5. The love that leads us. Have you ever felt lost or uncertain, unsure of which direction to take? Maybe you've been at a crossroads in life, torn between choices, or overwhelmed by the weight of decision-making. What if the answer to finding clarity and direction isn't in your own ability to figure it all out, but in surrendering to the one who knows the path ahead of you perfectly? In 1 John 4:18 we read, "There is no fear in love, but perfect love drives out fear, because fear has to do with punishment." The one who fears is not made perfect in love. This powerful verse speaks to the transformative power of God's love. When we truly grasp how deep and unshakable his love is for us, it has the power to remove our fears and anxieties, replacing them with a deep sense of security and trust. Historically, the early Christians lived in fear and uncertainty. They were under the threat of persecution, and many faced immense challenges. Yet they found refuge in the love of God, a love that promised them peace and assurance despite their circumstances. God's love wasn't just a comforting feeling, it was a force that strengthened them and helped them persevere through trials. They were not led by fear of the unknown, but by the perfect love of God, which guided them into courage and boldness. Spiritually, this verse teaches us that fear and love cannot coexist. When we invite God's love into our hearts, it drives out fear, which often holds us back from stepping into the life God has called us to. Fear of the future, fear of failure, fear of making the wrong choice. These fears are all conquered by the perfect love of God. His love leads us with wisdom, clarity, and courage, enabling us to make decisions with confidence and assurance. The application for our lives today is incredibly powerful. When we feel uncertain or afraid, We can choose to rest in God's love and trust that He will lead us. Whether it's a small decision or a life-changing one, God's love will guide us with gentleness and strength. It is not a love that forces us, but one that invites us to follow His lead in peace and trust. Instead of being driven by fear or confusion, we can choose to be led by God's love, knowing that He will never lead us astray. When we surrender our anxieties and give Him the reins, His love becomes our compass, guiding us toward the path He has prepared for us. Today, let God's perfect love drive out fear from your heart. Let it lead you into peace, clarity, and the assurance that He is with you every step of the way. Part 6. Resting in God's love. Have you ever felt like you're constantly running, trying to keep up with the demands of life, only to end the day feeling more exhausted than when you started? Maybe you've been overwhelmed by responsibilities, constantly striving to accomplish more, but never feeling truly at rest. What if true rest isn't found in checking things off your to-do list or in achieving perfection, but in surrendering to God's unending love and peace? In Matthew 11:28-30, Jesus extends a comforting invitation. Come to me, all you who are weary and burdened, and I will give you rest. Take my yoke upon you and learn from me, for I am gentle and humble in heart, and you will find rest for your souls. For my yoke is easy and my burden is light. These words remind us that Jesus doesn't call us to keep striving on our own. Instead, He invites us to come to Him and find rest, not just for our bodies, but for our souls. Historically, the people Jesus spoke to were worn out by the burdens of religious law and the oppressive demands placed on them by society. Jesus' invitation was radical, offering a kind of rest that wasn't dependent on external conditions, but was available in relationship with Him. He offered them a yoke, a tool of work, but His was light and easy, inviting them to learn from Him in the context of love and grace. Spiritually, this passage reveals that true rest is found in surrendering to God's love and allowing Him to carry the weight of our lives. We are not called to handle everything ourselves. Rather, we are invited to lean into God's love, trusting that He will guide us through the burdens of life. When we stop trying to control everything, we allow His peace to settle within us, and we experience rest that surpasses human understanding. The application for our lives today is crucial. In the busyness of life, we often forget the importance of spiritual rest. We mistakenly think that rest means doing nothing, but true rest comes when we release our burdens to God. Rest is about trusting Him with the things we cannot control, allowing His love to soothe our hearts and give us the strength to carry on. When we rest in God's love, we stop striving and start trusting. We allow His peace to restore our souls and refresh our spirits. Today, if you find yourself weary, bring your burdens to Jesus and let His love be the rest you need. His love will carry you, renew you, and give you the peace that you long for. Don't let the pressures of life steal your rest. Find it in the embrace of God's love, which is always enough to refresh and restore. Part 7. Empowered by God's peace. Have you ever felt like you were stuck in a cycle of fear and uncertainty, unsure how to break free? Maybe you're facing a difficult situation where everything seems out of control, and you can't seem to find the peace you desperately need. What if the key to breaking free from that cycle isn't through striving or worrying, but by allowing God's peace to empower you from within? In Colossians 3:15 we are told, "Let the peace of Christ rule in your hearts, since as members of one body, you were called to peace. And be thankful." This verse invites us to let the peace of Christ be the guiding force in our hearts. It isn't just a fleeting feeling, but something that actively rules, directing our thoughts, actions, and emotions. God's peace isn't meant to be passive. It's a powerful, transformative force that brings stability and confidence in every area of life. Historically, the Apostle Paul wrote this letter to the early church, encouraging believers who were facing persecution and turmoil to let God's peace rule their hearts. He wasn't just offering a comforting suggestion, he was giving them a mandate. Let God's peace take charge. In a world filled with conflict and pressure, this peace would be the hallmark of the early Christian community, a clear sign that they were living under God's sovereign care. Spiritually, God's peace is meant to be more than just something we experience in quiet moments of reflection. It's meant to govern our entire lives. When we let the peace of Christ rule in our hearts, it becomes the lens through which we view the world. No matter what external circumstances we face, God's peace is meant to be a steady anchor, keeping us grounded and calm. The application for our lives today is powerful. In the chaos of everyday life, we often try to manage everything ourselves, thinking that we have to fight our own battles. But God's peace invites us to stop striving and start trusting. It empowers us to face challenges with a calm, focused heart, knowing that we are not alone. When we allow God's peace to rule, we make room for His wisdom, His guidance, and His strength to lead us. Instead of reacting in fear or frustration, we can respond with grace, knowing that God's peace is actively working in us. It's not a passive peace that just makes us feel good. It's a powerful peace that propels us forward with confidence and clarity. Let God's peace reign in your heart today. Let it empower you to rise above the stress and chaos of life, knowing that His peace will guide you through every challenge with unwavering assurance. Part 8. Daily surrender to God's will. Have you ever faced a situation where you didn't know which way to turn? Maybe you've struggled with making decisions, weighed down by the fear of making the wrong choice. It's easy to feel lost or paralyzed when we try to figure things out on our own. But what if the key to moving forward lies in surrendering every moment to God and trusting that His will is always for our good? In Proverbs 3:5-6 we are instructed, "Trust in the Lord with all your heart, and lean not on your own understanding. In all your ways submit to Him, and He will make your paths straight." This passage invites us to fully surrender to God's will, not relying on our limited understanding, but trusting in His perfect guidance. The promise here is that when we submit to Him, He will direct our paths, ensuring we walk in the right direction, even when the journey feels uncertain. Historically, these verses were a call to the people of Israel to trust God, especially when they faced trials and challenges. They were urged to rely on God's wisdom and not their own, acknowledging that His plans are always better than their own. The wisdom of this passage is timeless. Surrendering our will to God brings peace, clarity, and direction in the midst of life's uncertainties. Spiritually, surrendering to God's will means recognizing that we are not in control. It's an act of humility, acknowledging that God's understanding is far greater than ours. This surrender doesn't mean we stop thinking or making decisions. It means we invite God into every aspect of our lives, allowing Him to guide us with wisdom and love. When we surrender our desires, our plans, and our anxieties, we allow His perfect will to unfold in our lives. The application for our lives today is both challenging and liberating. In a world that pushes us to be independent and self-reliant, surrendering to God's will can feel counterintuitive. Yet, when we let go of the need to control everything, we open ourselves up to the peace and clarity that comes from trusting in Him. Each day, we are invited to surrender our plans, knowing that God has a better path for us. His will may not always align with our own desires, but it will always lead us to the life He has purposefully designed for us. Today, let go of the anxiety that comes from trying to figure it all out. Surrender your decisions, your worries, and your ambitions to God. Trust that His love and wisdom will lead you to exactly where you need to be. You don't have to carry the burden of life's uncertainties on your own. God is already in control, guiding you with His perfect love. Choose to trust Him today and experience the peace that comes from knowing He holds your future. Part 9. Walking in boldness and confidence. Have you ever faced a moment where fear held you back from stepping into something you knew you were meant to do? Maybe you felt unsure of your abilities or questioned whether you were truly capable of making a difference. The world often tries to diminish our confidence, but what if true boldness and confidence come not from ourselves, but from the love and strength of God? In Hebrews 4:16, the writer encourages us to approach God's throne of grace with confidence, so that we may receive mercy and find grace to help us in our time of need. This verse reminds us that we are invited to stand before God with boldness, not because of our own merit, but because of the grace that He freely gives us. When we recognize that God's love has already made a way for us, we can walk with confidence in His presence and in our calling. Historically, the early Christians were often intimidated by the challenges they faced. They were persecuted for their faith, living in a world that rejected their beliefs. Yet, the early church was encouraged to approach God confidently, not in fear, but in the strength of His grace. This boldness wasn't about self-assurance, but about knowing that God had already secured victory for them through Jesus Christ. Spiritually, God's love empowers us to live boldly. It's easy to feel small or insignificant in a world full of noise and distractions. But when we are grounded in the truth of who we are in Christ, we can move forward with unwavering confidence. God has equipped us with everything we need to live out His purposes. And that confidence comes not from our own strength, but from the fact that His love is with us every step of the way. The application for our lives today is transformative. When we embrace God's love, we no longer have to walk in fear or uncertainty. We can approach each situation with confidence, knowing that His strength is made perfect in our weakness. Whether we are facing a difficult conversation, a new challenge, or a calling that feels too big, we can step forward in boldness, trusting that God will equip us for the task. Instead of shrinking back or second-guessing ourselves, we can stand firm in the love of God, walking confidently into whatever He has called us to. Boldness doesn't come from our own abilities. It comes from the assurance that God's love has equipped us for everything we face. Today, walk in that confidence. Let God's love lead you and step boldly into the life He's calling you to. You are not defined by your fears or limitations. You are defined by His limitless love and strength. Part 10. Divine Purpose and Assurance. Have you ever wondered what your life's true purpose is, especially when everything around you feels uncertain or out of place? It's easy to get lost in the day-to-day struggles, wondering if there's more to your story than what you're currently experiencing. But what if, even in the middle of your challenges, God has a divine purpose for you that is bigger and more beautiful than you could ever imagine? In Jeremiah 29:11, God speaks these words to His people. "For I know the plans I have for you, declares the Lord, plans to prosper you and not to harm you, plans to give you a hope and a future." This verse reassures us that God has a purpose for each of us, a plan that is for our good, even when we can't see the whole picture. He is the author of our lives, and His plans for us are filled with hope and promise, no matter where we find ourselves today. Historically, these words were given to the Israelites while they were in exile. They were in a foreign land, far from everything they knew, facing an uncertain future. Yet, God reminded them that His plans were still in place, and even in exile, they had a purpose. Their hope wasn't in their current circumstances. It was in God's unchanging plans for them. This promise wasn't just for them, it's for us too. Spiritually, this verse speaks to the deep assurance we can have in God's love and purpose for our lives. When life feels chaotic or overwhelming, we can find peace knowing that God is working behind the scenes to bring about His good purposes. His plans are not disrupted by our mistakes, our setbacks, or our challenges. In fact, He uses everything to shape us and lead us toward the future He has prepared. The application for our lives today is profound. It's easy to get caught up in the struggles and feel like we're drifting without direction. But God's purpose for us is steadfast and unchanging. We are not here by accident. We are here with a purpose that God is unfolding in each moment. No matter where you are in your journey, trust that God's love is leading you toward the future He has designed for you. Today, take a moment to reflect on the divine purpose God has for you. Trust that He is guiding your steps, even when the path seems unclear. His love assures you that He will not lead you astray. His plans for you are filled with hope, and He will see them through to completion. Let that truth fill your heart with peace, knowing that you are part of a bigger story, a story that is unfolding with divine purpose and assurance. Conclusion. Today, we've journeyed through the profound truth that God's love is unchanging and powerful, capable of transforming our fear into peace, our anxiety into assurance, and our confusion into clarity. Rooted in Scripture and the early church's wisdom, we've seen how surrendering to God's love invites His peace to rule in our hearts and lead us daily. This love doesn't just comfort us. It empowers us to walk boldly, rest deeply, and live purposefully, even amid life's storms. God's love is not a distant ideal, but a present reality that calls us into a life of trust and surrender. In a culture obsessed with control and self-reliance, embracing this divine love challenges us to release our burdens and find strength beyond ourselves. It is through this daily surrender that we experience the fullness of God's peace, peace that guards our hearts, calms our minds, and fills our souls with confidence. When we live led by this love, we become vessels of God's grace and testimonies of His unshakable presence, shining His light in a world desperate for hope. If God's love has spoken to your heart today, take a moment to declare, "I will let God's love lead me." Share this message with someone who needs encouragement and peace right now. Your words could be the turning point in their day. Subscribe to stay connected to daily encouragement and prayer that centers you in God's love and power. Remember, letting God's love lead isn't just a choice. It's a lifestyle that brings lasting peace, purpose, and boldness. Walk forward today with confidence, knowing you are deeply loved and never alone.